and are unsuccessful with restorative justice.
It's just in case that anybody else needs any kind of video footage for like the past 2 years.
It invokes traditional restorative approaches.
Oh my god.
Education, understanding, community building. We felt that was the most important aspect of this case.
The Mi'kmaq fisherman, who was surrounded inside the pound, does not want to meet with the accused. Kennedy says the process will continue.
It will involve members of the Indigenous community participating, particularly individuals that are involved in the fishery, elders from the community, as well as the Mi'kmaq Legal Support Network itself.
The executive director of the Mi'kmaq Legal Support Network, Paula Marshall, supports restorative justice for the 25 men.
This was a really serious event that happened, and though it may not be reflected necessarily in the charges that were laid, we want to make sure that there is proper education, that there is accountability, and that Mi'kmaq needs will be heard and met.
A hearing is scheduled for next September for an update of the restorative justice process. However, the Crown expects more time will be needed. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Chipuktuk, also known as Halifax.
Quebec has been served a legal notice. 3 government ministries are named in a formal legal notice issued by the Atikamekw community of Wimukache. They say their ancestral lands are being destroyed by logging.
Unconstitutional, self-serving, and superficial. These are a few of the terms tossed around by the Atikamekw Nation to describe the clear-cutting and logging activities on their ancestral territory. And on Thursday, one community took legal steps to try and force a delay. The Atikamekw community of Wimotashi held a presser to announce they've served 3 government ministries with a formal notice to suspend logging activities on their lands. A lawyer representing the community says it's an invitation to renegotiate, and if ignored by Quebec, could lead to a major lawsuit. Wimotashi says they're not against industry, and they're not taking aim at logging companies because they don't want to compromise future partnerships. But if the government doesn't hold to their promise and their duty to consult, Wimotashi and its surrounding sister communities say their Atikamekw traditions and way of life will be compromised. Because this was a late afternoon press conference, the 3 ministries named in the formal notice have not had to...
If the true measure of character is how one handles power,
with Kia.
Doesn't this look like something resembling fun? Music, the outdoors, spending money, twirling around these shiny sticks of poisonous bullshit. I told you that you could do this for 48 hours straight in an inhospitable field or desert or parking lot with little to no food or water.
Sounds terrible.
I'll bet you $300 to $400 you'll come to see a handful of bands you kind of heard of this year at Portfest.
Dude, I don't have that kind of money.
Of course you don't. You're a young person. But that's the price of a general admission ticket at most major music festivals anyway. And because my generation did such a good job.
Mommy and Daddy.
That Woodstock was cool and somehow important. When we became capitalists, we turned these noise traps into a multi-million-dollar industry.
Sell out.
Thank you. Of course, you can choose to pay me the hilariously expensive ticket price in potentially manageable chunks. I don't care. I get my money anyway. Just make sure to buy stuff while you're stuck inside. That's the important part. You see, when I partnered with my buddies over at Potable Chemical Company to sponsor Hoytfest, our main responsibility became walking you into my music-themed maze and forcing you to buy their products. And nobody buys products better than rich people do. Young people are just kind of okay at it. We mostly needed the youths to make going to my sponsored crowd kit look like a cool act of defiance before beginning to price them out entirely. But after all, isn't 3/4 of your rent a small price to pay for all that fun you'll have once you're surrounded by other fellow millennial cattle in my noise and drug farm? Once you're there, you'll be free to listen to music you want, in between doing things like waiting in line for a porta potty, getting shoved by strangers, and taking in all the cultural appropriation and mystery pills your rotting brain cells can handle. And speaking of, look over there, famous person. Sorry, I had to do that to distract you from the horrifying statistics about drug-related arrests and overdoses at festivals like mine. Because drugs are an important part of Portfest. They're how we get you here. Without them, you'd probably be at home doing something less expensive and physically exhausting. So what do you say? Go to my 48 hours sweat and sound parade or something else. Before you decide, I'd like to point out that what you're really paying for is the opportunity to take a few Instagram pictures, to make it seem like you're having a good time, and the chance to tell your friends that you went to a big music festival for the rest of your life. Legally, you are under no obligation to tell them that you were hot and constantly rubbing sweaty elbows with strangers, and somehow got pink eye and weren't in the bathrooms, and that the sound was bad. Seriously. You can lie and brag to your friends. There's no law against it. Small price to pay for status. That's what I thought. And hey, for an extra $200, I'll let you stand in a shaded area, slightly larger. Small price to pay. So come to this year's Portfest. Portfest. You're paying for the right to tell your friends you went here. I'm Roger, by the way.
And I'm.
It doesn't matter what your name is. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to subscribe to our channel, hit the big C in the middle. Feel free to click the links to the right if you want to watch another cracked video. Don't forget to hit that notification bell at the bottom to be notified when we put out another great cracked video.
What would you call a new crispy chicken sandwich made by Subway sandwich experts with seasoned chicken?
But of course, I'm very sorry for saying that some people feel that their personal individual comfort can be damaged, that they will not be able to travel anymore to the United States for study or for visit, I don't know. So people generally don't care about anything what is not connected to their personal individual well-being. When the kids in Donbass have been killed, murderously by the Ukrainians, it did not harm Russian some of my colleagues or the other people here and everywhere in terms of their own personal well-being. Now this is in danger.
The problem of Ukraine has existed for the Kremlin for quite some time. It's been understood that having a hostile country on the border is a strategic problem. And Putin himself, in his speeches, in his articles, expressed that he was mulling over that. He would hate to see the Russians and the Ukrainians fight, but this was somewhat where the things were moving. Why do you think he chose to act now? Because as you said, the war has been going on for 8 years. People have been killed for 8 years, but what do you think made him move right now?
In order to respond to this question properly, we need to have the same information as the leaders and states of the states and governments do have. We don't have it. I believe that now we are at the very end of the period when resolution of the problems with European security order are possible without a general war. If and it has been said by Russian leadership for many times, if the Ukraine would have been incorporated into NATO, developed NATO military infrastructure, the war of choice, which is going on today, could have become the war of necessity for Russia, conducted not in order to defend the interests, but in order to survive. And when you fight the war in order to survive, you can resort to all nuclear capabilities you have, and they all know that Russia has significant and dangerous, as well as the United States, significant and dangerous for the entire humanity military capabilities. So this war is fought in order not to put Russia in the position to war for survival.
Okay, Timothy, we have to take a very short break right now, but we will be back in just a few moments. Stay tuned.
So what we've got to do is identify the threats that we have.
It's crazy.
Confrontation, let it be an arms race. This offense, very dramatic.
Okay, boring. Oof. Spaghetti jeans have pretended to be a.
All this is okay.
Why are you putting stickers all over your face?
Hello, everybody. Relining clips back up on the YouTube.
Everyone here understands the COVID mandates are just one part of a much larger crisis. The radical left is trying to replace American democracy with woke tyranny. They want to do the same thing to America that Trudeau has been doing to Canada, and much, much worse. The tyranny we have witnessed in Canada in recent weeks should shock and dismay people all over the world. In an advanced Western democracy, the peaceful movement of patriotic truckers, workers, and families,
Why
the
not?
most basic rights and liberties, has been violently put down.
No.
Their assets and life savings have been frozen. They have been slandered as Nazis, racists, and terrorists. These are the names they've been called. They've been arrested and charged with phony crimes. They've been falsely accused of loyalty to foreign powers. I watched them. I saw those maple leafs all over the flags, and the love for their country. Plenty of Americans were there too, and they love our country. They're being hunted down like enemies of their own government and treated worse than drug dealers and murderers or rapists. A line has been crossed. You're either with the peaceful truckers or you are with the left-wing fascists, and that's what's been happening, and it's been a strong line. We stand with the truckers, and we stand with the Canadian people in their noble fight to reclaim their freedom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, please, 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 please. You're a fucking idiot.
Joyce Behar from Dispute, she's one of those banshees. Well, she was talking about her own personal experience with the conflict in Ukraine. Another panelist was making a very heartfelt opinion about how awful the conflict is, but Joy had other concerns.
What?
It's heartbreaking to hear what is going to happen. Well, I'm scared of what's going to happen in Western Europe too. Yeah. You know, you plan a trip, you want to go there. I want to go to Italy for 4 years. I haven't been able to make it because of the pandemic, and now this. You know, it's like what's going to happen there?
Italy. No. Fucking asshole.
Yes, I'm sorry the people of Ukraine. Joy wants to be on the Amalfi Coast, and her plans are in ruins. I mean, get your stuff together.
An asshole.
It's fantastic.
Perfect. I'm gone. Yes, Mama. The struggle is real.
This episode of Never Too Small is sponsored by Established Title.
He who sits alone, sleeps alone, and walks alone, who is strenuous and subdues himself alone, will find delight in the solitude of the forest. The Buddha. Some people avoid solitude like the plague. Others love being alone and thrive best in solitude when they are far away from the endless chatter of their fellow beings. Unfortunately, in the individualistic Western society, loneliness is one of the most common reasons for misery, like mental illness and addiction. So I think it's very important that people know how to
Sophia made a good choice today. I'm not referring to her morning dessert, though it does look.
That time alone in a healthy way and not seeing it as a punishment, but rather as an opportunity to grow as a person. Hence, I present you 4 healthy ways to be alone.
No.
Being alone comes in many forms. We have extreme cases like hermits that spend most of their lives without socializing. And we have those more moderate solitude seekers that spend time by themselves for specific reasons like meditation, reflection, or achieving certain goals. On the other hand, there are cases in which loneliness becomes a vessel for mental and physical problems, and even death. The term lone wolf has quite a negative charge in society because it is used to describe people whose solitude was a breeding ground for hate that has led to violence. So, regardless of the fact that loneliness is chosen or not, it's how we spend that time that decides the outcome. The ways I present in this video are practical as well as philosophical, and I hope you'll find some value in them. 1. Be your own best host. This is a practical one. When you spend time alone at home, imagine that you're a guest in your own house. How would you treat a guest? How would you talk to a guest? When we are mean to our guests, they will probably don't like being around us. Thus, when we are mean to ourselves, it's not surprising that we don't like being around ourselves either. If you're lonely when you're alone, you're in bad company, said French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. And I think he's absolutely right. Now, we can apply this self-hospitality in many ways. The way we talk to ourselves, and also if we cook ourselves a nice meal with the same love as we would do for others. Or if we don't allow ourselves anything better than a nasty.
Okay, but my dog eats fucking pork chocolate when he Pizza Pockets, so.
So what? There they all are. They're all oh my God.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. That was before our third. Oh, she's in there. Is he in there? No, that was it. So what's it like being your grandma? And the best. There couldn't be a better joy, a bigger joy. It sort of came on unexpectedly. Yay, I was getting to be a grandma. I wasn't quite ready. I didn't think I was grandma material, whatever. And then the first one is little Pierre was put in my arms. I'm a joy. I'm having another little one, so innocent. It's a big part of his life growing. And yet it dawns on when you start doing the dance of being a grandma. I write and then you find you're a grandma. And then you're not raising them. You're just there to love them. You're there to help the parents, give them time off, and just to have the best relationship with the children, which is so healthy for us all to love little children. They're such wonders.
Okay.
It's exquisite. So Sophie can move into the big residence, the other residence. I think she moved, yeah. We ever try and sneak her at the back door? No. You know, when I bought to ditch my police. I'm sorry to say that way because they're very nice men and women. But I bought to not have them as Prime Minister's wife when I found out that it was just on the whim of the Prime Minister how our security was set up. On a whim. I mean, there is no law, no. So I said, oh well, so he got me a little rabbit, a Volkswagen Rabbit, and I just took off with no police anymore. Still the children had them and he had them. Now it's legislated, it's the law. She can no longer drive the car. She must always have security. And so maybe it's still in jail. Is it still in jail? Yeah, but she has her.
Morgan serves Trudeau's wife's clothes.
There's little ways.
She has 10 security at all times.
Get out there,
They surround her.
Be part of it.
She's apparently a great tipper.
Like a Downton Abbey lady caught in the drawing room. Be part of your life every day. Did you ever think this would happen? No. Well, I guess I knew. One of my boys, having had such a father, would be serving in a huge way, and I know Sash as well. My cousin's brother has huge things to offer. He's in a force in his own right. So, Raising children is always difficult. What I've found what I've had with my children and with my big family and all the support that I've had and what I've seen with all my friends and their children, yay, it's their turn to raise some great kids.
No thanks.
Do it. I'm going to go. I'm not everybody going to go
I'll
to
take a big fucking pass on it.
It's not my turn.
Getting another dog. You are so crazy. Mm. Versus clothing is even Ukraine. Horror stories from Ukraine. Thanks. God. What's at the core of this movement? It's a 27th. Why am I getting one from 17th, 12th? Oh.
The list of Elon Musk's rivals is increasing day by day because he's not known for having friendly relationships with many tech giants and influencers, including Jeff Bezos, Joe Biden, and now Microsoft founder Bill Gates. American business magnate and Microsoft developer Bill Gates has opposite views than Elon Musk from electric vehicles to the global pandemic. So why is Musk cursing Gates? And where's this rivalry going? Let's find out. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, Elon Evolution, where we tell you all the latest news about Elon Musk and his multi-billion-dollar companies. In today's video, we're going to talk about why
Maybe. What? What?
Sign against poverty. You know, that's like classic protest signs. Like, really?
It's like I'm against torture. It's like it's so obvious. You don't get any brownie points for being against poverty. No one in the right mind is for poverty. You ever watch The Simpsons? You ever see the Republican Party? The Simpsons, they all meet in an old haunted castle at night with like lightning bolts going off, and there's a vampire and a crazy Texan. And even the Simpson Republicans don't sit around in the haunted tower at midnight saying, "Hey, we need more poverty."
The Mississippi River is now the Mississippi Reagan. My good friend Frankenstein is now Franken Reagan.
Here's an interesting thing. So one of the postmodernists claims is that diversity is necessary, and they make it racial, and they make it sexual, they make it ethnic, and all of that. That's actually technically incorrect, by the way, because I study individual differences. So those are the differences between people, and I know the literature. So you know about James Damore's memo, right, from Google. He wrote that part because he was watching my videos, which is why he wanted me to interview him. And I'm a believer that there are biological differences in temperament between men and women, apart from the other obvious differences, and that they're actually not trivial. And that they maximize in societies that have moved farthest to producing egalitarian states, Scandinavian countries, and that the reason for that is that there's two reasons why men and women differ in temperament. One is biological and the other is environmental. And if you remove the environmental variation, which you do if you make the state egalitarian, you maximize the genetic variation. And that's been demonstrated in the scientific literature over about 4 decades. And no one wanted it or hoped for it, and they weren't biased in looking for it because that was exactly the opposite of what social scientists wanted to find. Because social scientists lean heavily to the left, and what they wanted to find was you flatten out the state so that everyone has equal opportunity and the differences between people disappear. That is not what happened. The opposite happened. That was wrong. And no one was happy about it. And no one's happy about it now. You can actually tell when you've discovered something in the social science because you're not happy about it. But if you take, let's say, there's a big difference between men and women in terms of trait agreeableness, compassion and politeness. On average, women are more agreeable than men. And the difference is approximately this. If you take random pairs of men and women out of the population, let's say you had to make a bet on who was more agreeable. If you bet that it was the woman, you'd be right 60% of the time. Well, that's not that much. It means you'd be wrong 40% of the time. That's almost 50% of the time. So this is a big difference by social science standards.
Send people to death over that same percentages. Well. Yes, Mama. What? What? Mama. Mama. What?
Mystery that got solved only to lead to another deeper mystery.
Would you like to be able to eat your favorite foods and still lose weight? If you buy my patented diet program membership or diet app or prepackaged diet food thing or whatever diety diet stuff, I'll tell you that you can. And you'll believe me. Hi, I'm Roger, and you're going to pay me to help you lose body mass for a brief period of time in an unhealthy way just to gain it all back, and then you'll pay me to do it again. Don't believe me? Talk to our celebrity spokesperson.
It's retarded. All you guys do is fucking eat. Oh, grocery shopping, and where you're gonna cook, and then eating it, and how it looks, and taking pictures of it, and fucking cleaning it, and doing dishes, and shitting it out. Also, you can go to the gym. Susie, can you get the fuck out of my face? Go do something. Mama, go do something. Let's do it.
Would you like to be able to eat your favorite foods and still lose weight? Well, if you buy my patented diet program membership or diet app or prepackaged diet food thing or whatever diet stuff, I'll tell you that you can. And you'll believe me. I'm Roger, and you're going to pay me to help you lose body mass for a brief period of time in an unhealthy way just to gain it all back, and then you'll pay me to do it again. Don't believe me? Talk to our celebrity spokesperson from a TV show that was big in the 90s. She was once an icon, but society doesn't embrace aging. So now her job is to get smaller in size, right?
Hi, I was a famous person in the past, and now I get paid $33,000 per pound I lose to say things like, I love and use this product. I love and use this product. Chemicals.
Wonderful. Just wonderful. You see, the average celebrity who we hire to lose weight with our program makes between $500,000 and $3 million for depleting fat using our program. What a great gig! Next, fast food companies will glom onto whatever new eating habit we're selling to you. Gluten-free, low-carb, you name it. Like this average Joe who only ate sandwiches for 3 years. Fast food will claim to be on board the diet train thanks to him. It wasn't that product that made him too small to fit into his pants. He just stopped eating unhealthy amounts of food. Technically, you can stuff any amount of edible items into your top hole as long as you lick it. But it won't make you healthy. But the sandwich company doesn't care. They'll market the crap out of his shrinkage unless he reveals he's a skis bag. Then they'll drop him faster than you can say, it's not healthy to lose that amount of weight that quickly just by eating sandwiches. Anyway, evil monster. But if these celebs and average Joes don't do it for you, we'll just shame you. Shame you for ingesting anything that's outside of our program, because that's being bad, naughty, or unhealthy. But if you eat my fat-free, sugary, chocolate-covered, stale puffed rice snack bar, then we'll applaud you. In fact, our entire program will be designed like a video game, where you get badges and reward points for getting in shape. We'll even make apps where we'll track your steps, exercises, everything you eat, your location. Like a super creepy Big Brother type thing. And you'll make it so you can exercise away that late night you crushed inside your saliva maker last night because my garbage puff bar made you feel sugar. You can't jazzercise that okay? Which is fine for us because we have a badge for that too. Look at that neat badge. It's distracting and fun. We didn't give you some sort of cutesy badge or virtual high five. You get bored and defeated. We want you to keep giving us money forever as your body shape moves back and forth. By the way, the rice puff bar is now unhealthy. But try our new gluten-free, full-fat paleo square of crusty meat. See how we keep changing what's considered good for you? That's how we get it. Because 108 million people are dieting just in the U.S. They try and fail and try and fail 4 or 5 times a year. Then if you do lose weight, 95% of you will gain it back within 3 years. We literally design our programs for failure. However, if you earn that weight back, it's you who failed, not our program. Never our program. You're a failure because you can't maintain an unrealistic masticating and exercise pattern the rest of the time you spend breathing. Whoops! Looks like paleo bars aren't good anymore. Now you should buy my liquid diet. You'll literally piss out your poop hole, all because your body is freaking out and doesn't know what to do. It's going into starvation mode since you keep switching from unhealthy diet to unhealthy diet, making it harder for you to lose weight. Your body is just trying to keep you from starving, but we've helped you develop a complex about feeding yourself. It's something you have to do or you'll die. And I sell you strategies and products that make it seem legitimate to starve yourself on and off. But if you really wanted to get healthy, you just eat moderately and exercise moderately and accept that your body will never be what you deem as perfect. But we'll never tell you that. Come on. Go ahead and eat my grain-free, vegan, paleo, allergen-free, raw, non-solid bar. It's $25, and I guarantee you'll lose weight eating.
Hey guys, thanks for watching that video. Seems like you like watching stuff. If that's the case, please come to UCB Sunset Theater and see me, Jack O'Brien, and my half-brother, Daniel O'Brien, and other crack people, presumably, along with Georgia Hardstark and Karen Kilgariff, the hosts of the My Favorite Murder podcast, as well as guests on one of our most popular episodes of the Crack podcast. We're going to be talking about murder. We're going to be talking about mayhem. We're going to be talking serial killer. We're going to be talking urban legends that happen to be true. We're going to, those are mostly synonyms. I've just heard that listing things is good for punctuating your sales pitch. It is January 14th, 7 p.m. Be there or be murdered. I can't say that.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eric, fitness physician. In the next few minutes of this video, I'm going to show you the exact solution to shed excess weight and unwanted belly fat, drop clothing sizes, and sexier than ever. All without some crazy diet, killing yourself in the gym, or some crazy routines. So, a little about me, I grew up, I was very active, always involved in sports, martial arts, and other activities. I was actually going to martial arts class later in my 40s, and I was in the middle of the class, and I felt really bad. I was out of shape. It was embarrassing because I was kind of a low point for me. It's like I kind of hit the wall. Slower metabolism, waiting in for, oh, you're just getting old. No way, man. I was going to fight that. It was kind of like the evil empire of Agent K against me, the young Jedi. I'm like, yo, I'm going to fight this and took action. So, what I created is based on what I call the Primex philosophy. Mitochondria, cellular level science type and burning fat, weight loss, and higher energy. It works. I got the best shape of my life. Well over 40, and I've helped thousands of other patients and clients to do the same. And that you can do by getting online fitness coaching from me, a fitness physician himself. So this is hands down the best way to get your body in shape and attain the fitness results you always wanted. So I will design a custom workout, nutrition, and supplement plan that's built completely around your goals. It's individualized. I have limited openings, so be sure to sign up today. So what I offer is a 12-week online lifestyle, fitness, nutrition, training package, training and meal plan, and supplementation, and more. So if you're looking to get the best shape of your life, improve your physique, lose weight, get your energy back, get rid of
Go
excess body
for a
fat,
run. Or stop eating, you fat fucks.
training and nutrition plan, and monthly check-ins by phone or email, and submitting progress photos and videos. So private coaching sessions are also available. Join private coaching sessions at any point. Let me help you make up these changes that you needed, adjustments to your current fitness and nutritional program. So be sure to click the link below, sign up, and find out more details about Dr. Eric online fitness coaching programs. DrEricPrimex.com. Until next time, stay fit, live great.
Alors, montrez-moi ça. Vous voyez bien?
Ouais, c'est parfait, c'est j'adore. Encore mieux que mon souvenir.
Go fuck yourself, go fuck yourself, go fuck yourself.
Hello? I've imprisoned you in the Matrix. The only way to escape back to the world of the real is to watch and explain every Matrix. What? I think it's gonna pop.
Fine. The logos are green and shit. That's cool. You know, Warner Brothers is green and glitchy. You know, something's wrong with the world we are about to enter. And even worse, some freaky looking Japanese katakana number hybrid things on the screen like blood running down a urinal. The first metaphor that came to mind, and definitely shouldn't be admissible in court. And anyway, over this not blood, we hear a conversation about how a man is currently watching another man, but a woman wants to take a shift watching the man, which is kind of hot. Even hotter, she's worried the phone is bugged. Before I can double check to make sure I'm on HBO Max and not Pornhub, it turns out that she's right. And a bunch of cops enter a building, and they let the fat one kick down a door to reveal a pretty leather lady Oh, is there such a thing? Some FBI-looking sumbitches show up and are immediately annoyed the cops went in without them. The cops are like,
I think we can handle one little girl.
and the FBI guy who looks kind of like the Lord of Rivendell, weirdly, is like, incorrect.
None are already dead.
We then cut back to the leather lady who, in fact, murders everybody in the coolest possible chair-kicking, wall-running, air-floating ways, and also she shoots this random cop like 15 times. She then whips out a cell phone.
Also boring. Indeed, Jesus H. Christ. Mm.
24 Sussex was built for one of the lumber barons, Edwards, who was a big part of the development of Ottawa. It's a grand old house, but it looks so much bigger from the street, doesn't it? Because,
Yes.
right from here on, it's all staff quarters. It's not
Mm. 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 Mm.
Hey Psych2Goers, and welcome back to another video. Your love and support have enabled us to send your way another wealth of everyday psychology. So, let's explore. Have you heard of borderline personality disorder, or BPD before? It's a personality disorder that affects about 1 to 3% of the population. So, what is BPD? People with BPD struggle with self-image and self-perception. Their behavior and view of others changes quickly as they battle waves of sadness, anger, or anxiety. It's linked to traumatic events, brain chemistry, and family history, but these factors aren't always present in people with the disorder. Hidden BPD is a type in which the symptoms of the disorder are internalized. They're not displayed outwardly, making its diagnosis difficult. And this leads your friends, partner, or family members to misunderstand your actions as having a toxic personality or a different mental disorder like anxiety rather than borderline personality disorder. Before we begin, we would like to remind you that the purpose of this video is to create awareness and should in no case be used to self-diagnose. If you find you can relate to these signs, please reach out to a professional for help. With that being said, here are 7 hidden signs of borderline personality disorder. 1. Self-hatred, self-harm. You often see the world in extremes and struggle to maintain a sense of identity. One hidden sign of borderline personality disorder is esteem or self-hatred.
Oh yeah.
This creates internal conflict.
No one shits on me harder than me.
Negative self-image, and feeling like you're a bad person.
Always.
Self-harm is another sign of borderline personality disorder, and this can escalate to suicidal thoughts or attempts at suicide. 2. Difficulty regulating emotion. You cycle between periods of intense emotions like emptiness, sadness, anger, and anxiety. People with BPD struggle to feel in control of their emotional responses to situations. This is called affective instability, and it's more intense and longer lasting than hormonal mood swings. Because people with hidden BPD tend to internalize their feelings, their mood swings likely won't be as noticeable to others. It's important to note, however, that intense mood swings can also be a sign of mood disorders, which is why it's so important to get diagnosed by a mental health professional.
Which I was diagnosed wrong.
In some cases, a person may be diagnosed with both borderline personality disorder and a mood disorder such as bipolar. 3. Internalized anger.
Depressive.
Intense anger can also be a sign of BPD. Some people verbally or physically lash out at others, brought on by BPD. But in the case of hidden BPD, this anger is turned inwards against the self and in the form of self-hatred, or if suppressed, which is even more lethal. Such anger can also manifest as repeated frustration or extreme irritation when faced with interpersonal stressors that people without BPD or other personality disorders
go
can
from
handle
depressed
without
to
getting
suicide,
upset.
like very suicidal, almost like
Fear of rejection. Would you agree
like
that
within like
rejection is
a day or
hard
two
stomach,
of taking
even in the
it.
best of times? For those with BPD, fear of rejection is yet another hidden sign. This could manifest in an irrational fear.
I told my family doctor I think I have BPD, and he was like, "Yeah, well, we don't diagnose BPD because there's no treatment." And I was like, "Oh, well, I want cognitive therapy." And he's like, "I don't have any referrals for that, so."
5. Unstable relationships.
Here's some
Do you face
antidepressants.
difficulty maintaining
Don't worry
interpersonal
about the therapist
relationships
part.
like friendships, sibling bonds, or romantic relationships? It can be difficult for people with BPD to preserve relationships.
And then he ruined
Because
my
they
brain.
often idealize, think very highly of, and then romanticize someone for a while, and then devalue, or distrust, or become disgusted with them. A 2016 study suggests that some people with BPD react to relationship stressors with impulsivity, which generates instability in relations as well. 6.
Sorry, Cam.
Impulsive decisions. While cycles of impulsive decisions commonly occur in those with bipolar disorder and other mood disorders, they're also a sign of BPD. Examples of impulsive decisions someone with BPD might make are substance abuse, spending or gambling sprees, skipping work or appointments, unprotected sex, binge eating, or reckless driving. Impulsive decisions are a hidden sign of BPD because others may think this impulsivity comes from low impulse control or another mental disorder instead of BPD. And 7. Disassociation. Finally, people with borderline personality disorder may disassociate more frequently and for longer periods of time than typical functioning people. Disassociation is when thoughts or emotions enter your mind and you find yourself incapable of focusing on your actions, instead operating on autopilot or watching yourself do things without feeling connected to your body. Disassociation is a hidden symptom of BPD because others may assume someone who is disassociating is just tired or distracted. Disassociation can also be a symptom of PTSD, or dissociative identity
Yeah, that's one I
disorder,
haven't been
also known as
diagnosed with.
DID.
pretty sure is
But if it
pretty
occurs
big factor.
alongside the other things, it's likely a hidden sign of BPD. It's important to remember that mental disorders affect everyone differently. Not everyone experiences all the symptoms. You might also experience symptoms not listed here. That's why it's so important to seek help from a licensed mental health professional with experience in personality disorders if you think you or someone you love might have BPD. Have you or someone you know been diagnosed with BPD? Are you now better equipped to look out for its hidden symptoms? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.
I can't let diabetes get in the way. I got way too much stuff to do.
Fucking Jonas with your fucking
So here's what I do.
diabetes. Nick Jonas, they're all the same.
Hi, I'm Kyle with MedCircle, joined today by Dr. Judy Ho. We're talking about two very popular topics, especially on YouTube, ADHD and quiet borderline personality disorder. This term quiet borderline personality disorder is really making the rounds. What is that?
Quiet BPD, while not in the DSM, is a emerging construct that clinicians and lay people alike have been discussing. And I think the reason why this emerged is because if anybody does know anybody with borderline personality disorder, they will know that it actually has a really wide spectrum of expression, meaning if you know one person with borderline personality disorder, you do not know all of them. They really look quite differently in terms of the way that they present. Some people have borderline personality disorder traits that feel like they're really in your face. And even within the first couple of meetings with them, you think, whoa, is this what's happening? And then other people, you may know them for months without realizing that perhaps they carry some of these traits. And I would say that quiet BPD is more of the latter. It's again, a subtype not in the DSM, but an emerging construct that people are talking about. And with quiet borderline personality disorder, the most important aspect of this is that the person directs their mood swings and behaviors inward instead of lashing out at others. And so what makes it complicated to diagnose and treat is that they have a lot of intense emotions bubbling up inside, but they kind of direct that anger towards themselves, and they do more self-harming, self-damaging behaviors, both in thoughts and action, that don't become apparent until somebody really intimately knows this person for a period of time.
If you're interested in learning more about the treatment options and how to seek the right treatment, we have a live panel happening tonight with many of our MedCircle psychologists and psychiatrists. You can learn more at medcircle.com or use the information below this video. Dr. Judy, that quiet BPD seems to overlap a lot with some of the symptoms of ADHD. What are those overlapping symptoms, and how can we, as just a lay person, really understand the differences?
Well, BPD and ADHD have overlap in that oftentimes people with ADHD, BPD, or both struggle with difficulties in self-regulation, and they generally have difficulties with a stable sense of self, as well as relating positively in a consistent way with other people. Individuals with quiet BPD especially could have these mood swings that we sometimes see with individuals with ADHD, but they will oftentimes keep it to themselves. They'll suppress those feelings of anger, even denying that they're angry, perhaps withdrawing when they're upset. And as mentioned, related to the inconsistent self-concept, they also have lower self-esteem. And those are also some of the traits that we see in individuals with ADHD. They also have low self-esteem. Sometimes they do withdraw when they don't feel like they're doing well, particularly if they're more of the inattentive type of ADHD rather than the hyperactive and impulsive type. And there's also this idea of a fear of rejection and fear of abandonment that is very prominent in individuals with BPD, but with individuals with ADHD who have struggled in the social environment, they start to develop these traits as well. So those are some of the things that can overlap with those conditions.
Why do you think, well, let me ask you this. Do you know by any chance the percentage of people who have quiet BPD or quiet BPD, who have a borderline personality disorder and ADHD?
Well, the research is just emerging, but early research suggests that there could be as much as 25 to 40% of overlap between the two, so that 25 to 40% of individuals with what we call the quiet borderline personality disorder construct may also have dimensions of ADHD. And obviously that makes it difficult to know what symptom really goes with which condition. Although I would say that the treatment then can be very much the same, because when we think about dialectical behavior therapy and how it helps with emotion regulation, we know that that can be applied to both symptoms or both conditions. And this is a emerging type of intervention approach that we have been calling transdiagnostic treatments, which means we know that there's these evidence-based techniques, and these evidence-based techniques can treat certain types of symptoms or groups of symptoms. And it doesn't actually matter what the diagnosis is, we're going to treat it at the symptom and presentation level. And transdiagnostic treatment approaches have actually garnered a lot of praise lately, and there's been more and more research about how they work.
You have a wonderful series on Med Circle on adult ADHD. I have some questions about that, but right now I'd like to give the viewer an inside look into that series. Take a look at this. Now, what are some common misconceptions when it comes to adults who either believe they have ADHD or have received the diagnosis?
I feel like everybody thinks that they have ADHD, and I think everybody is on the spectrum at some point, at some time. But if you just have inattentiveness occasionally, but it doesn't actually impair your functioning, and you're not that distressed about it, then you're not really going to qualify for that diagnosis of ADHD. Adulthood ADHD is relatively at 50% of the prevalence rate as childhood ADHD. So national studies have shown that ADHD in childhood is about 5% of the population. In adulthood, it's 2.5%. So roughly 50% of people recover from ADHD by the time they hit the age of 18, and then 50% go on to continue to suffer symptoms in their adulthood. And I think a big misconception is that it looks the same for some reason, because it doesn't. In adulthood ADHD, the hyperactive and impulsive features look very different. As a child, the child's running around the classroom, getting out of their seats, really being very rule, not abiding, which causes some negative attention, and that's really when the teachers identify them as help to the parents. In adulthood, they may still have that restlessness, but as adults, we're a bit more controlled in terms of our behavior. So we're not going to be running around when we know we're not supposed to, but you might just feel really fidgety. And so sometimes you see individuals like tapping very nervously on the desk or on the table. And that may be a manifestation of an adulthood.
At the airport, I used to have 10-hour shifts. Finger tap. For 10 straight hours.
You can watch that full series and more at watch.medcircle.com. Dr. Judy, with the ability for adults to get ADHD as an adult, can an adult get quiet borderline personality disorder? They didn't show symptoms in their teens and early 20s, but now at the age of 48, they're starting to notice these symptoms.
Well, I think that can happen, although I would say that it's more rare that all throughout their life they really haven't had any symptoms. It's more correct how you presented it, which is that they started noticing them later in life. And sometimes those symptoms are there, they're kind of in the backdrop of that personality development, but perhaps because their life hasn't been overtly stressful in a specific way that brings out those symptoms, they haven't noticed it. Sometimes individuals notice it later because they become more self-aware and they realize, oh, this is why I had some difficulties with relationships earlier than life. I just didn't know the name for that.
No, I didn't.
A lot of times, for example, people don't realize that in their earlier years, in their 20s and even 30s, some of their relationship dynamics, how they maybe are attracted to people who are very dismissing, and how they fear abandonment, rejection at the smallest, even ambiguous clues that the person may be losing interest. They don't identify that as a dimension of borderline personality disorder. But as they get older, they realize, whoa, this is a pattern that I've had, and actually at this point, it's severely impacting my life. And I maybe self-sabotage a number of my relationships by being overly clingy or being very black and white in my thinking towards how people relate to me, especially intimate relationships, and they don't recognize that until their older ages. But in the earlier years, they were already exhibiting some of those behaviors.
That makes excellent sense, and that was a good reminder. Thank you for that. Why do you think there is seemingly 25 to 40% of the population or of people who have borderline personality disorder also have ADHD? Why is there so much overlap?
Well, when you think about the etiology of both conditions, again, obviously there are some differences, but some of the similarities in terms of causes or maintaining factors of both conditions is that generally individuals with ADHD and with borderline have some adverse childhood experiences. Some of them come from their actual family of origin. So maybe they had very dismissing parents, or maybe even parents that had borderline traits themselves. But when somebody has ADHD, that also emerges early in childhood, and it really affects somebody's self-esteem if they weren't identified and treated early. Because you notice how different you are to the other peers who just seem to get things more than you do. The teachers are pointing out how you're not paying attention and you're constantly being reprimanded in class. And then in addition, as we mentioned, individuals with ADHD oftentimes struggle with developing positive relationships. So there's that fear of abandonment that starts to emerge at a young age. And so when you look at the possible causes that overlap between the two conditions, you can think about why perhaps as they approach adulthood, they might exhibit similar constructs in terms of how they act and interact with the world, but also one condition might start to overlap into another, because people oftentimes think about the development of certain personality conditions, and particularly borderline, with instances of trauma. Well, when you've been bullied in school, when you've been rejected over and over again by your peers, that is a form of trauma for many people. And that could be one of the causes that promoted the symptoms of borderline to emerge as you get older.
Very interesting. Tonight I'm very excited because we have a panel of med-surgical psychologists and psychiatrists who are going to be answering questions and discussing live, answering your questions, not my questions, answering your questions. If you'd like to be a part of that, check out the information below this video or go to medcircle.com. You can also see upcoming live virtual classes that you can attend to ask your questions. This is not treatment, it is education. But if you would like to learn more about that directly, you can go to medcircle.com/live. I'm very excited to see you all tonight. Why would one person with
I'm pretty sure a free therapist is more likely
ADHD while someone else
give you more
with
trauma.
BPD would not show any symptoms?
Sorry, Fury.
Well, I think, as we know, all psychological conditions are multifactorial. They develop from a lot of different instances and factors that influence the person's trajectory.
He's
And
like,
one
not
thing that
really,
we
I'm
do
kind of suicidal.
mention a lot in the emerging research is the idea of a familial link. And so if you have family members who also have borderline personality traits or on the spectrum, or if you have family members who also have ADHD or on the spectrum, that certainly could be one of the major contributions to why you then emerge with those traits yourself. There's also, as we briefly mentioned earlier, the impact of the environment, and particularly the social environment. And I think that when an individual has been subjected to repeated instances of isolation, rejection, social negative influences, they're more likely to develop both BPD and ADHD. And I think when we think about how these symptoms emerge in individuals, it's not often clear what emerges first. Although I would say that when somebody has both ADHD and BPD, usually the ADHD condition emerges first, because we know that that's a developmental problem where people start to have symptoms in their childhood years, and it's certainly not solidified until the person is a bona fide adult. And so for those reasons, if we were to talk about which one generally emerges first, the ADHD may emerge first, but depending on your familial and social environmental factors, you may also then later develop the BPD condition in combination with the earlier emerging ADHD.
Certainly, people living with borderline personality disorder benefit from having a strong family support. MedCircle has a series on family strategies and supporter strategies to help those with BPD. Now, take a look at this.
Kickboxing tonight. This class is going to be extra intense.
That was obviously not
the safety plan. Can you do it without a professional?
I think so. I think that it's on a good day, when everyone's kind of getting along. Say, I always want to make sure that home or whatever this place is feels safe to you. What can I do when that happens? When you're sort of going out of control, what would help you feel safe at that time? You got to remember, when it comes to psychological skill, I have to say my clients with borderline personality are some of the most psychologically skilled ones I have. They're very much in touch with this is what works. I wish people knew this about me. But in the moment of crisis, they can't articulate it, right? So the more we can understand that on the front end, the better it is at a moment of crisis, because many times they've done a lot of psychological work. So there is that awareness. But, listen, nobody does well when you're trying to build an airplane in the air. You really want to get this thing built before it takes off.
Yes.
And that's really that's the struggle, is that people are often sort of quickly trying to address a crisis in a very dramatic way, asking somebody when things are feeling this out of control for you, is there something I could do? Say what would help. You want to work with somebody collaboratively. We don't want to get into that caretaker dynamic where I'm going to rescue you. I'm going to put a plan on you. Like, what helps you feel safe?
You can watch that series and more at watch.medcircle.com. Dr. Judy, when it comes to the stigma around borderline personality disorder, are you seeing a similar or perhaps less of a stigma around quiet borderline personality disorder?
I think when somebody has a label of borderline personality disorder, the stigma is largely the same. People think that these individuals are difficult to get along with, unstable, untreatable, and none of that is true. I personally have treated and interacted with some of the sweetest people who have borderline personality disorder. And I think that oftentimes when somebody has the quiet borderline personality disorder, they can present that way. They can present as very sweet, very accommodating, but as we mentioned, the anger gets turned inward, and they're much more passive aggressive in their expression of dislike with somebody. And in some ways, it makes it a little bit harder to draw them out and to identify the condition and to treat the condition. But I want to mention that every type of borderline personality disorder has a way forward in terms of improving upon their functioning, improving their relationships, and certainly getting better and having those symptoms be much more reduced after a period of treatment. A lot of times people will say, well, when you have borderline personality disorder, does that mean you have that condition forever? Personality conditions are more longitudinal. We do think of them as more long-term, but there are people who are treated so that the borderline personality disorder symptoms are basically not noticeable. And so even if they would say, well, I think that they're still kind of in the backdrop and I just kind of have to watch it and I have to use my interventions, if it's not impacting their life, then effectively they've gotten much better and it doesn't really matter what the label is. And that's what I really encourage people to think about is, the individuals who exhibit borderline personality disorder symptoms, they get so much bad rap. And yet if they work hard, just like they work hard on anything else like depression or anxiety symptoms, they can get relief and their relationships and functioning do improve. And so I really do hope that the stigma gets better, that people stop thinking that it's a condition that can never be treated, because that's just completely false.
It's successfully treated for many, many people using dialectical behavior therapy. We have a few videos on that. We'll link them up here somewhere. Make sure you add those to your watch list to get fully educated. Dr. Judy, thank you for being here. We'll see you tonight. I'm Kyle Kilson. Remember, whatever you're going through.
Kyle Kilson. Everyone else is funny.
This is a switch bike.
Get the fuck out of here with your stupid fucking bike. I'm clothesline too. It's my life goal. I'm not gonna die until I clothesline.
La fête des pères.
I hate you. Yeah, piece of shit.
La fête des pères.
I'm a raging piece of shit.
We
We are resolved to continue imposing massive costs on Russia. Costs that will further isolate Russia from the international financial system and our economies. In coordination with President Biden, President Macron, Bundeskanzler Scholz, and Prime Minister Draghi, as well as Prime Minister Trudeau and Prime Minister Johnson, we considered a significant tightening of our international response. The European Union and its partners are working
No, but
Oh, really?
You're tuned in to the Andrew Lawton Show.
Welcome back to the Andrew Lawton Show here on True North. Obviously, we've been speaking for weeks, for years now, about the COVID restrictions that have, in many ways, as I've said time and time again, been in some key areas far worse than the virus against which these restrictions were intended to protect, especially as the virus has gotten weaker through the Omicron phase when some governments were insisting on adding restrictions. Now, slowly, we've seen some of these start to be lifted. Notably, Alberta and Saskatchewan took a very swift approach to getting rid of their vaccine passports. In Ontario and Quebec and other provinces, we have a bit of a slower uptake. But the big question here is, when is the pandemic over and who gets to decide? It's the World Health Organization that said we were in the midst of the pandemic, but do we have to wait for their view to say it's over? Well, a few weeks back, you may recall, we spoke to Urban Student of the Institute for 21st Century